Ariana Grande recently announced that she's taking a step away from visibility at the end of her tour and recently canceled some of the things she had coming up, after what she described as endless scrutiny, specifically around her physical appearance and health. And let's be clear, the internet is divided as to how to talk about Ariana and how to talk about the decision she just made. What's up, everybody? I'm just Wayne. This is Let's Be Clear, where we talk about everything at the intersection of pop culture and politics. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button. Because the reality is this: Ariana Grande has been in the public, in the spotlight for years. And she's always dealt with the ebb and flow of celebrity as it exists in the 2010s and the 2020s. Like, I've long said that being a celebrity in this time period has to be the worst era to be a celebrity because you are constantly exposed. At the same time, that constant exposure has created a level of parasociality that makes it so that people will invest and buy. And let's be clear, so much of the conversation surrounding Ariana Grande is rooted in those parasocial relationships. The fact that people have watched her and her relationships and the way that she has shown up for all these years made it so that when we were collectively watching her at the height of her career, as I would argue, she booked Glinda. She booked, like, she was in Wicked Part 1 and 2, two of the biggest movies that have come out recently. And when we got to the press run for Wicked for Good, everyone who came out on that press run seemed to be much thinner than we remembered. Like, the joke that so many people were running with is like, bro, are they even feeding people on that movie set? You combine that with the societal push that exists right now towards thinness. So what I think is funny is, as a millennial, I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s where being thin was everything. Like, girls aspired to be really, really thin with big boobs. That was the aesthetic. That was the look. And then hip hop took over in the mid 2000s. And suddenly we found ourselves in a space where curves and big butts became a thing. And so all of a sudden we transitioned from that to like the space where people were trying to, in the gym, trying to get a bigger butt and trying to have more curves and getting BBLs and all those different things. And now we found ourselves shifting back. And I would argue, once again, that society and pop culture plays into this conversation. When pop music and country music were everything and whiteness was at the forefront, right? This kind of European thin standard came into play. Suddenly, when hip hop became the biggest genre, all of a sudden, what was considered more of a black aesthetic came into play, whether that was physical, like, the filler and the lips and all the different things. Like, so much of the black physical aesthetic took over. And Ariana Grande leaned into the elements of that black physical aesthetic that she could at the time. But she booked Glinda, and we saw her recently start to lean into where society has started to lean into, which is this much thinner space. We add that with the availability, the wide availability of GLP-1s. Now, to be clear, I am not anti-GLP-1. I am actually pro-GLP-1 for folks who are using it in a healthy way. Like, I think there are a lot of people who need something because it is either brain chemistry or physical chemistry element as to why they cannot achieve their goals that in a healthy way. Super pro GLP-1 when it's done in a healthy way. But when you take someone like Ariana Grande, who I'm speculating at this point, I don't know if she's on a GLP-1. But when you take someone like Ariana Grande, who's always been thinner, and then she shows up even thinner, we start to have conversations about the wide availability of GLP-1s and the push towards thinness. We also have started having conversations on the internet about possible eating disorders, which once again is speculation. And I think this is so important because I've seen people who have or have experienced or have recovered from eating disorders talk about how it's not helpful to just assign an eating disorder onto someone because they're thin. And I think people are grasping at that to try to make sense of it, trying to make sense of why someone who, for all intents and purposes, was never, ever overweight, according to society, and for all intents and purposes, like, was vibrant, to now see that person seem physically frail and the light not shining through in the same ways. It's creating concern. And I think even bigger, for me at least, than the concern I might have or not have for Ariana Grande, it's concern for what this conversation about Ariana and her physical expression means for us as a whole. Are we going to start seeing once again this push where teenage girls are starving themselves or causing themselves to throw up or like doing everything they can to avoid food so that they can reach some standard that doesn't seem healthy. I think so many of Ariana's fans are divided because on the one hand, it's like, just let Shorty be, right? I think at some point we made the decision that talking about a woman's body is always inherently bad. And I understand that conceptually. And I think that this particular conversation has less to do with Ariana's body and more to do with what Ariana's body represents in the cultural zeitgeist. And also the fact that Ariana's body is signaling something about her health that her fans in particular may be concerned about. And the question I think we're all circling around is, are we allowed to be concerned about this level of thinness? Not just thin for thin's sake, but what it could be signaling about her physically. So when she made the announcement that she was going away, you had some of her fans got on there and like, y'all did it, congratulations. Y'all bullied this girl out, in walking away from visibility, which like, I know that there are people out there whose objective is to troll and to bully. And I hate that people who that's their objective and people who are genuinely concerned are thrown into the same algorithm, thrown into the same comment sections, are talking about the same thing, but it gets filtered all through the idea of scrutiny. Because I think the idea of her going away is actually more so rooted in the idea of maybe if she walks away from visibility, she has been working so tremendously hard. Maybe if she walks away from visibility, she will actually be able to take the time to take care of herself in a way where she could come back with at least the appearance of more health, some of that vibrancy, some of like every element of how she shows up maybe can feel more full. Because the question has to be asked, what do you do when you reach the peak? I mean, you are an Oscar nominated film. What do you do when you reach the peak of your career and you still feel empty? And sometimes that control is what leads to the things that we're speculating, whether it be GLP-1s, eating disorders, whatever it may be. My hope is that her stepping away gives her the time to rest and recover and maybe receive the type of care that she might need so that she can find health. And I hope we can collectively start to find ways to talk about these things so that when we see our sisters, cousins, aunties, because I didn't know till I was doing a little bit of research, the number one demographic of women in the world who have an eating disorder is 30 to 34. Like, if we can start to have conversations around this intense push towards thinness and frailness and what this actually means for people physically and from a health perspective, how can we actually show care? Whether it's parasocial for someone like Ariana Grande or it's actually social with people in our lives. Can we actually show that concern and care and help people or give people permission to take the time that they need? And that's my hope. My hope is that Ariana takes the time that she needs to not only rest and recover because she's been working so hard, but also receive the connection and the care and the space to just find total health. Once again, I'm just Wayne. It's been Let's Be Clear. If you like everything at the intersection of pop culture and politics, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, love y'all. And thanks for coming to my TED Talk.